Historically, the world of graphic design, like many others, has upheld the work of its European constituents at higher levels, often setting the standard of what many consider to be the right way to do something. In the world of design, this hierarchical element has come to be known as Swiss design, or more appropriately, the International Typographic Style. Hello, my name is Jesus Alejandro Lopez, and today I will be discussing Swiss design, its origins, influence, and the individuals who have helped redefine this tightly structured system for the contemporary world, making the claim that diversity has helped not only redefine the way we approach Swiss design, but graphic design as a whole. For those unaware of what Swiss design is, let's define it. According to A History of Graphic Design by Philip B. Maggs and Alston Purvis, the visual characteristics of the style include a unity of design achieved by asymmetrical organization of the design elements on a mathematically constructed grid, objective photography and copy that present visual and verbal information in a clear and factual manner, free from the exaggerated claims of propaganda and commercial advertising, and the use of sans serif typography set in a flush left and ragged right margin configuration. In short, Swiss design is essentially a tightly unified layout constructed by grids, like the one shown here. Elements of these designs should be void of expression, and the legibility of information is of most importance. One of the most notable features of Swiss design is its grid formation. Visually, the grids provide stability to the design and provide structure, almost like a formula. If placed correctly, the design should be successful. In the posters you're seeing now, the grid is used to strategically place elements on the composition in a way that is clear and precise. I believe that this intricate and detailed way of working is in direct correlation with Eurocentrism, or more so, our understanding of it. From looking at the works, another key aspect to note is the color, or rather lack thereof. While color has been used to express certain emotions, represent different cultures, or simply express oneself, the clear retreat from color is a direct response to the designer's view on expressionism. Many believe that art and design should be separate and never mix. Color should be neutral in order to promote a sense of universalism. However, what many European designers fail to realize is that universalism looks different for everyone. To some, color was a mere tool whose only function was to distract. To others, color was everything. And to have a design void of color would be to have no design at all. Another of its main indicators is the Swiss designer's preference for sans serif typography. During this time, sans serif typography was seen as progressive and universal due to its lack of ornamentation. Popular examples of the time include Universe, Futura, and of course, Helvetica. I believe that design is often a representation of one's world. For Europeans, this world was highly theoretical and structured, putting emphasis on function rather than form, often separating the designer from the design. One of the leaders of the movement, Joseph Müller-Brockmann, saw an absolute and universal form of graphic expression through objective and impersonal presentation, communicating to the audience without the interference of the designer's subjective feelings or propagandistic techniques of persuasion. As you probably have noticed by now, this idea of an impersonal world was often echoed by many practitioners of the style. To us, the idea of any form of visual media void of personality is one we're not accustomed to. In our modern day society, we often praise artists and designers for putting a part of themselves in their work, often labeling things we find interesting as unique or quirky. This personal interpretation of visual media is a direct antithesis of the world echoed by European designers of the 50s. It's not a coincidence that as the world of design and art has grown to account for a variety of artists, our interpretation of what we consider to be right or proper has changed. With that in mind, here are some popular examples of what many consider to be exemplary when it comes to Swiss design. As you can see, the designs all follow a similar structure when it comes to the placement of the elements. Color is often limited and text is clearly defined, often using the information itself to design the page. Despite a promise of universality, we must take into consideration its lack thereof when it came to the world outside of Europe, often looking to solve solutions through a Eurocentric lens. In spite of this, Swiss design continued to evolve, and as its influence reached the United States, Swiss design had no choice but to change in order to comply with a new diverse audience. As the 50s transitioned into the 60s, many American designers began to adopt elements of Swiss design into their work. The most notable, in my opinion, was that of Jacqueline S. Casey, an American designer from Massachusetts. Despite the influence of her work, many practitioners of design in the international typographic style failed to include her revitalization of the style in history. One of the most notable aspects of the international typographic style in Europe was the lack of expression and propaganda in their work, often utilizing text as purely a visual element and not realizing its potential in communicating a message. As the style gained popularity in the States, the politicization of its use came to fruition. No longer was the international typographic style a means to clearly communicate a message, but rather a tool used to invoke thought, inspire change, and revolutionize the world. In her works titled Russia, USA Peace, and Stop Pollution, we see the text being used to further communicate a message, utilizing text not as a mere puzzle piece, but as the puzzle itself. Can you figure out the hidden message? As content began to change, so did the elements that construct it. In Europe, sans serif fonts were praised for the legibility and expressionless quality they present. Often reflective of one's own world, typography has the ability to tell a story. However, when a large majority of its creators are white, how applicable is the story it's trying to tell? Part of my research was trying to discover typographers of color to include for reference. However, I quickly realized that I couldn't rely on popular publications to give me results. I had to rely on obscure sources in order to find the information I was searching for. This got me to thinking, is the issue really about representation when there is no one to represent? Throughout history, designers of color have had limited access to the resources and tools necessary to design, often relying on themselves to grow and learn. From an outsider standpoint, you could see why there will be little interest in joining a career in which a very large part of your identity is not celebrated. In my own experience, I am one of the few students of color currently in my year. I sometimes find it hard to relate to the words of my professor and peers as I don't see myself in them. I often doubt my work and potential and question if this career is even worth pursuing, knowing how few people like me often find success. However, I'm optimistic that the future will lend itself to those willing to push forward. Designers like Trey Seals are constantly pushing the grain alongside others. In his 2016 project titled Vocal Type, Seals created a type foundry reflective of a progressive society, often creating typefaces inspired by social change, such as women's suffrage or historical visionaries like Martin Luther King Jr. His typefaces are a representation of utilizing past knowledge and recontextualizing it for a brighter, more inclusive future. As the world of design continues to evolve, so will the way we think, teach, and approach it. While I believe that the influence of the international typographic system will continue to grow alongside the culture, it will take on a new look, one that considers the work of the underrepresented and celebrates those willing to take risks. Visual rhetoric teaches us that a picture is more than just a picture. Images have the ability to inspire, invoke, and innovate our thinking. However, it's our job to create an environment that allows for everyone to partake in that process. It's been proven time and time again that diversity is a precursor for innovation. Without it, many ideas throughout history would have been nothing more than just that, an idea. It takes a group of people with different perspectives, experiences, and ability to take something good and transform it into something amazing. Like the designers discussed earlier, many of them took already good ideas and recontextualized them based on their knowledge and reason. This is what living is all about, taking past knowledge and making it work for future generations.